I am continuing reading the book of Matthew, the first book in the New Testament in the Bible. Chapter 8. Jesus cleanses a man with leprosy. When Jesus came down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. And a man with leprosy, incurable, came to him and bowed down before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out with his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing, be cleansed." And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, "See that you tell no one, but go, show yourself to the priest and present the offering that Moses commanded as a testimony to them." The centurion's faith. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion, Roman law enforcement, came to him begging him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, terribly tormented." Good heart to care for a servant. Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "Lord, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." Now when Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those who were following, "Truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith with anyone in Israel. And I say to you that many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom, as in Israelites, will be thrown out into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it shall be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. Faith is powerful. Peter's mother-in-law and many others healed. When Jesus came into Peter's home, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick in bed with a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and waited on him. Now when evening came, they brought to him many who were demon-possessed, and he cast out the spirits with a word, and healed all who were ill. This happened so that what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet would be fulfilled. He himself took our illnesses and carried away our diseases. Discipleship tested. Now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to depart to the other side of the sea. Then a scribe came and said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "The foxes have holes, and the birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Like, I have nothing to give you. You think I'm a wealthy man of power? That's not what's happening here. And another of the disciples said to him, "Lord, allow me first to go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." Jesus calms the storm. When he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, remember, they live around the sea, so they were traveling by boat to reach different locations. And behold, a violent storm developed on the sea, so that the boat was being covered by the waves. But Jesus himself was asleep. And they came to him and woke him, saying, "Save us, Lord, we are perishing." He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. The men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" Jesus sends demons into pigs. And when he came to the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes, two demon-possessed men confronted him as they were coming out of the tombs. They were so extremely violent that no one could pass by that way. And they cried out, saying, "What business do you have with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now there was a herd of many pigs feeding at a distance from them. And the demons begged him, saying, "If you are going to cast us out, send us into the herd of pigs." They didn't want to go to hell or whatever they're supposed to be sent to. And he said to them, "Go." And they came out and went into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the waters. Crazy sight. And the herdsmen ran away and went to the city and reported everything, including what had happened to the demon-possessed man. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. That was chapter 8. They were so terrified. Those two men had so many demons in them. They were so tormented, and they were tormented others, making them suffer. They were a menace. So many demons that entire bunch of pigs was possessed by all those demons. And they all just pretty much jumped in the water and died. Just horrifying. It left a mark. And those people were not ready to receive Jesus because they were so terrified of it. It's like, if this demon-possessed man has so much power over us, how much more power do you have? And do we feel safe with this kind of power? Who are you? What's going on? I don't know how they were thinking, but they were terrified and they sent him out. But that testimony, they will remember that guy, that man who came and did powerful things nobody else could. Chapter 9, a paralyzed man healed. Getting into a boat, Jesus crossed over the Sea of Galilee and came to his own city, Capernaum. And they brought to him a paralyzed man lying on a stretcher. And seeing their faith, those who brought the paralyzed man, the friends, the carriers, whoever they were, he saw their faith, not the paralyzed man's faith, their faith. Jesus said to the man who was paralyzed, "Take courage, son, your sins are forgiven." He didn't talk about healing him, he talked about his sins. Sometimes sins paralyze our physical body. And some of the scribes said to themselves, "This man is blaspheming." And Jesus, perceiving their thoughts, he read their mind, said, "Why are you thinking evil in your hearts? For which is easier, to say your sins are forgiven, or to say get up and walk?" They're both hard. "But so that you may know that the Son of Man," he called himself the Son of Man, "the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," which only God can do, which means he's God. Then he said to the paralyzed man, "Get up, pick up your stretcher, and go home." Meaning, I can do both. I am God, he said. Like indirectly. Made a strong statement. And he got up and went home, forgiven and healed. But when the crowd saw this, they were awestruck and they glorified God, who had given such authority to man. If only they knew who he was. Matthew called. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting in the tax collector's office, Matthew. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. Then it happened that as Jesus was reclining at the table, as in like sitting and eating at the table, in the house of Matthew, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and began dining with Jesus and his disciples. They had a bad reputation because they were collecting taxes for the Roman Empire, which was not the original natural authority in the nation of Israel. They were upset with it. So he, in a sense, was being a bad man in society, but also a wealthy man for collecting taxes. Made money for himself too. So not a good reputation. So a lot of sinners and tax collectors, whoever his friends were, got to interact with Jesus when Jesus allowed himself to enter that space. Behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and began dining with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees, the religious leaders, saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why is your teacher eating with the tax collectors and sinners?" But when Jesus heard this, he said, "It is not those who are healthy who need a physician, but those who are sick. Now go and learn what this means. I desire compassion rather than sacrifice. For I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners." As in, Jesus came to save the sinners. Because those who are already perfect don't need him. He's not here for that. So of course he'll be around sinners and give love and grace to sinners and welcome them in. And teach them and heal them, bless them. The question about fasting. Then the disciples of John came to him, asking, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "The attendants of the groom," so he names himself the groom as a metaphor, as a figure of speech. The attendants of the groom cannot mourn as long as the groom is with them, can they? Celebration wedding. But the days will come when the groom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. So he's prophesying his crucifixion and the fact that he will live. But they didn't know. But no one puts a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch pulls away from the garment, and a worse tear results. Nor do people put a new wine into old wineskins, because it ferments and grows, and the old wineskin will pop. But this is once again figure of speech. Otherwise the wineskins burst, and the wine pours out, and the wineskins are ruined, and you also lose the wine. But they put new wine into fresh wineskins, and both are preserved. So his ideologies, what he's doing here, is new and require a new approach, new mentality, new behaviors, not the old ways. Miracles of healing. While he was saying these things to them, behold, a synagogue. Synagogue is like a church for Hebrews. A synagogue official came and bowed down before him and said, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her and she will become alive again." That faith. Jesus got up from the table at Matthew's house, and began to accompany him along with his disciples. And behold, a woman who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years came up behind him. So she's been bleeding for 12 years without healing. Came up behind him and touched the border of his cloak. So she touched a bit of his clothes. For she was saying to herself, "If only I touch his cloak, I will get well." Faith yet again. But Jesus, turning and seeing her, said, "Daughter, take courage. Your faith has made you well." And at once the woman was made well. When Jesus came into the official's house and saw the flute players and the crowd in noisy disorder, so they were like putting all these like rituals for mourning a dead person, he said, "Leave, for the girl has not died, but is asleep." And they began laughing at him. But when the crowd had been sent out, he entered and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And this news spread throughout that land. As Jesus went on from there, 2 men who were blind followed him, crying out, as in calling his name, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." And after he entered the house, the men who were blind came up to him, and Jesus said to them, once again in private, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" They said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes, saying, "It shall be done for you according to your faith." Yet again, we see a powerful trend. What you believe is what you'll get. Faith. You have faith, you'll get it. God will give it to you. No problem. But if you don't believe, you won't get it, even though you could have just gotten it. You could have always just had it. Just believe. It's powerful. And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, saying, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him throughout that land. And as they were going out, behold, a demon-possessed man who was unable to speak was brought to him. And after the demon was cast out, of course, the man who was previously unable to speak talked. And the crowds were amazed and were saying, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees were saying, "He cast out the demons by the rulers of the demons." Jesus was going through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, meaning gospel means the good news of the kingdom, as in God's way, God's will, God's plan for us, God's people, all of that. That's what it means when it says the kingdom. And healing every disease and every sickness. Seeing the crowds, he felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and downcast, like sheep without a shepherd. He felt sad for them. He loved them. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore plead with the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." The harvest is plentiful, as in, metaphorically speaking, these people, they need God. They need to find their purpose. They need to return back to their roots. But how could they? They don't know. You have that message for them. You carry out my mission. Chapter 10. The 12 disciples, instructions for service. Jesus summoned his 12 disciples, his 12 students, and gave them authority, power, over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal every disease and every sickness. How cool is that? How cool is that? He's like, here's a portion of my power. Go do it. You can. Just like that. Go in my name as if I do it. Amazing. Now the names of the 12 apostles, disciples, the students, the followers of Jesus, are these. The first, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew, and James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, like a religious warrior, and Judas Iscariot, the one who also betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out after instructing them, saying, "Do not go on a road to Gentiles, and do not enter a city of Samaritans." So only go to Israelites, nobody else in the vicinity that's not an Israelite. "But rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." The house is in the nation of Israel. "And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with leprosy, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Do not acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts, or a bag for your journey, or even 2 tunics, or sandals, or a staff. For the worker is deserving of his support." Faith, right there. How many of us are too prepared, over-prepared for things? He says, be under-prepared and just have faith. I'll provide. And whatever city or village you enter, inquire who is worthy in it. Reputation matters. And stay at his house until you leave that city. As you enter the house, give it your greeting. If the house is worthy, see that your blessing of peace comes upon it. But if it is not worthy, take back your blessing of peace, and whoever does not receive you nor listens to your words, as you leave that house or city, shake the dust off your feet. Like, I'm out. Shake the dust off your feet. Truly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that city. So it sounds like people who were like really terrible back in the day, Sodom and Gomorrah. If you read the Old Testament, you'll know. These people who refuse to believe in the message of God in the Bible, they're worse than those people who did horrible crimes back in the day. Like their punishment would be worse than that. That's something. A hard road ahead of them. Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, danger. So be as wary as serpents and as innocent as doves. But be on guard against people, for they will hand you over to the courts and flog you into the synagogues. That is like public humiliation and punishment back then. And you will even be brought before governors and kings on my account, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. Make a lesson of them. But when they hand you over, do not worry about how or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. It will just come. Don't worry. Don't prepare speeches. God will just speak through you. For it is not you who are speaking, but it is the Spirit of your Father, God, who is speaking in you. Now brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all because of my name. Christianity, faith in God, Jesus Christ. But it is one who has endured to the end who will be saved. Suffer through this. Let it be. Suffer through it to the end. But whenever they persecute you in one city, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not finish going through the cities of Israel until the Son of Man comes. The meaning of discipleship. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a slave above his master. It is enough for the disciple that he may become like his teacher, and the slave like his master. If they have called the head of the house Beelzebul, as in the devil, how much more will they insult the members of his household? So Jesus is saying, they said I'm demonic or something, using demonic powers, and said horrible things about me. They will say horrible things about you, even more. So be prepared for that. Just let it be. So do not fear them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. What I tell you in the darkness, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered in your ear, proclaim on the housetops. And do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him, as in God, who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are 2 sparrows not sold for an Assyrian, some sort of Roman copper coin, worth about 1/16 of a laborer's daily wage? So are 2 sparrows not sold for that? And yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. But even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not fear, you are more valuable than a great number of sparrows. Therefore, everyone who confesses me before people, I will also confess him before my Father who is in heaven. That's beautiful. But whoever denies me before people, I will also deny him before my Father who is in heaven. Are you willing to pay the price if times get hard? Do not think that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword, as in the word of God, the words he teaches. This teaching is powerful. It will cause a divide, and it will win a war. For I came to turn a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a person's enemies will be the members of his household. So being related by blood doesn't mean anything anymore when you can be related by faith, or when you can be reported for having certain faith if that faith becomes illegal, and there are legal consequences for it. And this is what he's talking about as far as I'm aware. The one who loves father or mother more than me, as in you're gonna quit your faith, believe in God, your belief in God because your mother or your father tells you so, that's wrong. You should be willing to lose that relationship if it comes to that, and keep your faith. So the one who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And the one who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And the one who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. The one who has found his life will lose it, and the one who has lost his life on my account will find it. The reward for service. The one who receives you receives me, and the one who receives me receives him who sent me. The one who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward. Amazing. And the one who receives a righteous person in the name of a righteous person shall receive a righteous person's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones just a cup of cold water to drink in the name of a disciple, truly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward. It's amazing. That was chapter 10. Chapter 11, John's questions. So now this is John the Baptizer. And now he was in jail, and he's starting to question what's going on, because even he didn't fully understand what it means for Jesus to be the Messiah. When Jesus had finished giving instructions to his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in their cities. Now, while in prison, John heard about the works of Christ, and he sent word by his disciples, because he had his own students, and they were carrying his messages and doing his work while he was he was in prison. Yeah, there you go. And said to him, to Jesus, "Are you the coming one, or are we to look for someone else?" John the Baptist sent a message to Jesus Christ, the Messiah, asking, "Are you that guy? Am I wrong? And it doesn't add up to me. Are you the coming one, or are we to look for someone else?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Go and report to John what you hear and see. Those who are blind receive sight, and those who limp walk. Those with leprosy are cleansed, and those who are deaf hear, the deaf are raised, the dead are raised, and the poor have the gospel preached to them," which was privileged, entitled rich people had the gospel preached to them before. He changed it up. He's fair and just. "And blessed is any person who does not take offense at me." So what he's making reference to here is a prophecy from the Old Testament, which John was aware of, where it says that all of these miracles will happen when the Messiah will come, because he will do that. And this is not something anybody else cared to do before, because the religious leaders before did not care to do those things. Jesus did, because he loves us, okay? It's not about his own status, it's about us. He came here with a mission. He doesn't need any more status than he already has. So he's pretty much making a statement look at the prophecy, I'm fulfilling the prophecy, I am the Messiah. Moving on. As these disciples of John were going away, Jesus began speaking to the crowds about John. What did you go out in the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Those who wear soft clothing are in king's palaces. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and one who is more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written. So he's talking about John the Baptist. Behold, I am sending my messenger ahead of me, who will prepare your way before you. Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has not arisen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he, because he didn't believe anymore. He lost some faith. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been treated violently, and violent men take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to accept it, John himself is Elijah, who was to come. Elijah was a prophet from the Old Testament back in the day. Really powerful, amazing prophet. The one who has ears to hear, let him hear. But to what shall I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces who call out to the other children and say, we played the flute for you and you did not dance. We sang a song of mourning and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a gluttonous man and a heavy drinker, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. Then he began to reprimand the cities in which most of his miracles were done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles that occurred in you had occurred in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes, as in true repentance. This is like the way they outwardly expressed it back in the day in that region. Nevertheless, I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, will not be exalted to heaven, will you? You will be brought down to Hades, the location of the dead. For if the miracles that occurred in you had occurred in Sodom, it would have remained to this day. Nevertheless, I say to you that it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom on the day of judgment than for you. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for this way was well-pleasing in your sight. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son determines to reveal him. You want to get God, to know God? You get to know God through Jesus, God the Father. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is comfortable and my burden is light. The mission of Jesus Christ. That was chapter 11. Moving on to chapter 12. Questions about Sabbath. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. Sabbath is the day of rest, pretty much a mandated day of rest in Judaism, in their religion. And his disciples became hungry and began to pick the heads of grain and eat, which was not allowed according to rules. Now, when the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on a Sabbath." But he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he became hungry, and he and his companions? How he entered the house of God and they ate the consecrated bread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those with him, but for the priests alone? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests in the temple violate the Sabbath, and yet they are innocent? But I say to you that something greater than the temple is here," himself. "But if you had known what this means, 'I desire compassion rather than sacrifice,' you would not have condemned the innocent." So even though in their mind, in their strict rules, this looked like they were doing something wrong, in Jesus' eyes, they were innocent. They did nothing wrong. It was just ridiculous to enforce that kind of just absurd rule on people. That was just so unkind to them. Jesus said, like, I would rather you be kind than be so uptight on those rules that don't make sense. I want you to love others. Receive that love. Function out of love and compassion and kindness, the heart of God. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. So what Jesus says goes. If he wants to change the rules, he'll change the rules, and it's okay, and he's not wrong. Departing from there, he went into their synagogue. And the man, like after he made them mad already, now he goes into the synagogue to stir up even more waters. There we go. Let's see the story. And a man was there whose hand was withered, and they questioned Jesus, asking, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" So that they might bring charges against him, right? But he said to them, "What man is there among you who has a sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will he not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable then is a person than a sheep? So then it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath." Then he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and he was restored to normal like the other. But the Pharisees went out and conspired against him as to how they might destroy him. But Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there. It wasn't the right time for him to be captured yet, he knew. So he withdrew from there. Many followed him, and he healed them all, and warned them not to tell who he was. This happened so that what was spoken through Isaiah the prophet would be fulfilled. The prophecies are becoming true. "Behold my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul delights. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bent reed he will not break off, and a dimly burning wick he will not extinguish, until he leads justice to victory. And in his name the Gentiles will hope." So there is hope not only for the Israelites, but also for all humanity. The Pharisees rebuked. Then a demon-possessed man who was blind and unable to speak was brought to Jesus, and he healed him, so that the man who was unable to speak talked and could see. And all the crowds were amazed and were saying, "This man cannot be the son of David, can he?" But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "This man casts out demons only by Beelzebul, the ruler of the demons." And knowing their thoughts, Jesus said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself is laid to waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. And if Satan is casting out Satan, he has become divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand?" So he's pretty much like using logic to show them that their thought process doesn't make sense, because Satan would not destroy Satan and cast out demons. It benefits him for people to be demon-possessed. "And if by Beelzebul I cast out the demons, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore they will be your judges. But if I cast out the demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. Or how can anyone enter the strong man's house and carry off his property unless he first ties up the strong man, and then he will plunder his house. So what he's saying is, I have the power of God to cast out demons because I already am more powerful than the leader of demons. The unpardonable sin. The one who is not with me is against me, and the one who does not gather with me scatters. Therefore I say to you, every sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven people, but blasphemy against the Spirit shall not be forgiven. And whoever speaks a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whoever speaks against the Holy Spirit, it shall not be forgiven him, either in this age or in the age to come. Watch your words. Either assume the tree to be good as well as its fruit is good, or assume the tree to be bad as well as its fruit is bad. For the tree is known by its fruit. So kind of like if you want to know if somebody works under the power of God or the power of the devil, watch their actions. You will know who they are, and then you'll know if they work with God or not. You offspring of vipers, how can you, being evil, express any good things? For the mouth speaks from that which fills the heart. The good person brings out of his good treasure good things, and the evil person brings out of his evil treasure evil things. But I tell you that for every careless word that people speak, they will give an account of it on the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So not only do actions matter, but words matter too. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, an evil and adulterous generation. Kind of watch the attitude here. An evil and adulterous generation craves a sign, and so no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah the prophet. For just as Jonah was in the stomach of the sea monster for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. He is prophesying about his crucifixion, when he will die and be buried for 3 days and 3 nights and then resurrect, come back to life. How could they have known? The men of Nineveh will stand up with this generation at the judgment and will condemn it because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And behold, something greater than Jonah is here, Jesus Christ himself. The queen of the south will rise up with this generation at the judgment and will condemn it because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And behold, something greater than Solomon is here. Now when the unclean spirit comes out of a person, it passes through waterless places, seeking rest, and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. So repossess the person that it got out of. And when it comes, it finds it unoccupied, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings along with it 7 other spirits, more wicked than itself, and they come in and live there. And the last condition of that person becomes worse than the first. That is the way it will also be with this evil generation. So it's pretty much saying, I removed demon out of you, now you're clean, but you're unoccupied. You should be occupied by God, by the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit, if God is not occupying your soul, your heart, your spirit, if you are possessed, you'll be repossessed worse than you were before. Don't just be receiving miracles, like actually pursue God and live in that. Surrender to the Holy Spirit. Pursue holiness. It's not your work, but you gotta do the work. You gotta do your part to accept it. While he was still speaking to the crowds, behold, his mother and brothers were standing outside seeking to speak to him. Someone said to him, Look, your mother and your brothers are standing outside seeking to speak to you. But Jesus replied to the one who was telling him and said, Who is my mother and who are my brothers? And extending his hand towards his disciples, he said, Behold, my mother and my brothers. So he's pretty much saying, these are my family, the people who are on the same mission with me, pursuing God, doing God's work. For whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother. So he's pretty much saying, if your family doesn't pursue God, don't let that deter you from pursuing God. You should still do the right thing. This will get a lot more intense. This is definitely a graphic book. I will read one more chapter and then I will start a new video. Jesus teaches in parables. Parables is in analogies, metaphorical stories, satire, figures of speech to convey a certain meaning, but not that a meaning that not everyone can clearly understand unless their mind is open to receive that message and interpretation. On that day, Jesus has gone out, so chapter 13, on that day, Jesus had gone out of the house and was sitting by the sea. Nice. And large crowds gathered to him, so he got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd was standing on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, Behold, the sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate them up. Others fell on the rocky places where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up immediately because they had no depth of soil. But after the sun rose, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out. But others fell on the good soil and yielded a crop, some 100, some 60, and some 30 times as much. The one who has ears, let him hear. So meaning like the kind of spirit that you're talking to, the kind of person you're talking to, the condition of their spirit, soul, and heart will affect if they accept the message of the Bible and if it will actually make a lasting change in their life. An explanation for parables. And the disciples came up and said to him, Why do you speak to them in parables? And Jesus answered to them, To you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been granted. For whoever has, to him more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has shall be taken away from him. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because while seeing they do not see, and while hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is being fulfilled, which says, You shall keep on listening, but shall not understand. And you shall keep on looking, but shall not perceive. For the heart of this people has become dull with their ears. They scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their heart, and return, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see and did not see it. Messiah came. And to hear what you hear and did not hear it. The sower explained. Listen then to the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is the one sown with seed beside the road. The one sown with seed on the rocky places, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no firm root in himself, but is only temporary. And when affliction or persecution occurs because of the word, immediately he falls away. And the one sown with seed among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, and the anxiety of the world and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But the one sown with seed on the good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces some 100, some 60, and some 30 times as much. Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and left. So the good seed was wheat, and weeds were sown by his enemy. And when the wheat sprouted and produced grain, then the weeds also became evident. And the slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds? And he said to them, an enemy has done this. The slave said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up, as in pull the weeds out? But he said, no, while you are gathering up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather up the weeds and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. He presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a person took and sowed in his field. And this is smaller than all the other seeds, but when it is fully grown, it is larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the sky come and nest in its branches. He spoke another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 seah of flour until it was all leavened. So like a certain amount of flour. All these things Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables, and he did not speak anything to them without a parable. This was so that what was spoken through the prophet would be fulfilled. I will open my mouth in parables, I will proclaim things hidden since the foundation of the world. The weeds explained. Then he left the crowd and went into the house, and his disciples came to him and said, explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field. And he said, to the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, so Jesus, whatever he teaches, and the field is the world, the people. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the weeds are the sons of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of age, when the end of the world comes. It's gonna be a whole another thing. And the reapers are angels, so just as the weeds are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. Going to hell, something of that sort. The Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. The one who has ears, let him hear. In the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field, which a man found and hid again, and from joy over it, he goes and sells everything that he has and buys that field. So God treasures saving us. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls, and upon finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold everything that he had and bought the same. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was cast into the sea and gathered fish of every kind. And when it was filled, they pulled it up on the beach, and they sat down and gathered the good fish into containers, but the bad they threw away. So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come forth and remove the wicked from among the righteous. So it's kind of like a separation at the end. Good people will be together, unfaithful people will be together. And they will throw them into the furnace of fire. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, a lot of suffering. Have you understood all these things? They said to him, yes. And Jesus said to them, therefore every scribe who has become a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like a head of a household who brings out of his treasure new things and old. And then Jesus revisits Nazareth. When Jesus had finished his parables, he departed from there. So sad to sit there and hear these parables and think that Jesus is maybe he likes gardening and he talks about plants. And you don't understand the meaning of those parables, and you're like, okay, what did Jesus talk about today? He talked about plants, you know? Quite something. Jesus revisits Nazareth. When Jesus had finished his parables, he departed from there. And he came to his hometown and began teaching them in their synagogue, with the result that they were astonished and said, where did this man acquire this wisdom and this miraculous power? Is this not the carpenter's son? Joseph, the father who raised him. Is his mother not called Mary, and his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Where then did this man acquire all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not dishonored except in his hometown and in his own household. And he did not do many miracles there because of their unbelief. So they kind of, people who grew up with him kind of did not accept him because of their biases and expectations against him, seeing him as less than, it's just another human who's just an average nobody. Instead of seeing past that, they couldn't, they struggled. So because of their lack of faith, their unbelief, he did less miracles. It's not like he didn't want to, it's not like he couldn't, it's because they didn't receive it, they didn't accept it. And that was chapter 13, and I'm going to stop here and start a new video on chapter 14.